controls on China that they hate. There have been investment scrutiny that the Congress of the United States has stepped up. And it's just, these are just things of a totally different nature. I think for the United States, well, let me make one more point. Our trade deficit with the EU this year might end up, or for 2025, might end up being bigger than the trade deficit with China. We reduced that trade deficit with China by about 25% last year. So when it comes to imbalance, we have a huge imbalance with Europe. You've had huge access into the U.S. market for many years. We've had limited access into Europe. You limit our agricultural imports, you limit our industrial imports, and you have a huge surplus with us. And it's not because Europe is particularly competitive. I know I'm here in Europe, and I've spent a lot of time in Europe. I have children born here. I like Europe. But the reality is you're not competitive. Most of us here have read the Draghi report. We know you have bad energy policy. The fact that you have this massive surplus with the United States can't be due to competitiveness.
You look this year at China's trade surplus, which keeps going up. Definitely it's lower with the US. But China, by putting a lot of pressure on China, China is actually expanding elsewhere. And surely you do care about the economic influence of China.
Well, first and foremost, we worry about the American economy. And so we've taken measures to protect against overcapacity, certainly from China, they're the biggest offender, but there are other Asian economies, Vietnam, elsewhere, who have a lot of overcapacity. They have high tariffs too. I can't change other countries' trade policy, right? I can't force them to take measures to protect their own economies. All I know is we can control some levers in the United States with the executive authorities we've been given. We've taken care of that. I remember in 2018 going to business representatives from a large Western European country, and we told them we're going to put tariffs on China to control for unfair trade practices and overcapacity. What are you going to do? And they said, we're going to out-innovate the Chinese. Now, I've met the Chinese, and they're becoming quite innovative. So I don't think that was the great policy. And now here we are, 8 years later. If I were outside the U.S. and I was one of these countries that was facing overcapacity from China or elsewhere, or Vietnam, etc., I would think about the type of interest-based measures I could be taking and that countries have taken for literally hundreds of years.
Do you think the EU should put tariffs on China?
Well, I'm not going to say that.
Why not?
Well, because I'm just trying to get along with it.
This is not going to get me to get along with them. Let's talk about the US economy. Well, first of all, there is a Supreme Court decision coming down the line, possibly in...
What time is it? Is it 10 a.m.?
No, in exactly 17 minutes.
It'll be fun.
That's what you're expecting, that it's going to be fun.
Well, first of all, we don't know if the decision's going to come down.
Yeah.
First of all, we've had the past 2 weeks where everyone went to the court and Justice Sotomayor came out. She said, "Why is everyone here?" They weren't there for the criminal defense case that they handed down. So the case will come down eventually. The administration gave the court a clear pathway to find in favor of the administration. I won't go into great detail about this, or I won't stop talking about it. The plain language of the statute authorizes the president in an emergency situation to regulate imports. You regulate import tariff. That's how it works. There's an emergency with our trade deficit and offshoring. Courts typically will defer on the emergency. So we think there's a clear statutory and constitutional basis for all of this.
But if it does rule against you,
If it doesn't,
what will you do? What would these tariffs on Greenland work?
well, so what I would say is, the Trump team has been thinking about these actions for years. And my sense is, had COVID not happened at the end in 2020, you probably would have seen broader action even then. So there are a lot of different options. My general counsel has told me that I'm not allowed to discuss them in public, so sorry. But there are a lot of different plans available. The president chose to use IEPA because it is the most appropriate to the situations we're facing. For the emergency, like the trade deficit, for emergencies related to national security, it's the most appropriate. So if we aren't allowed to use that, there are other tools we can use, certainly, but IEPA is the most appropriate.